This is the May 10th, 2024 inaugural meeting of the Vermont Climate Council Agriculture and Ecosystem Subcommittee. Welcome, everybody. We've got about an hour to meet today. This is just kind of our kickoff, and we will meet likely for longer with more substantive topics going forward. But today I'm just going to give a quick rundown of the agenda and then we'll get going. So we're going to do member introductions. We've got a largely new group here today with some returning members. So it'd be great to hear from everyone and learn a little bit more about what brings you to this role. And then we're going to just do, kind of a quick run through of the work that the Climate Council has done to set us up for our work in the coming year, an overview of our role and responsibilities, some documents that summarize the progress that's been made on the initial climate action plan. Then we'll have some time for just some general questions and discussion, and then finish by scheduling our next meeting. And I'm a little rusty with this. I actually did not build an opportunity for public comment into our agenda. Apologies for that. So we'll try to save the last 5 minutes or so of the meeting for an opportunity for public comment for anyone who wants to comment. Sound good? Great. Well, with that, why don't we kick off with some introductions? Since I'm talking, I'll keep talking. My name is Billy Coster. I'm the Director of Planning and Policy for the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources. I work primarily in land use, energy, and climate, legislative policy and regulatory matters for A&R. I've been at the agency for about 13 years and worked at the Vermont Housing Conservation Board doing land conservation for about 10 years before that. And I was a co-chair of this subcommittee for the initial climate action plan as well. So with that, I will pass over to JL.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jael Pulskamp. I've been an organic vegetable grower in Worcester, Vermont. In Worcester for about 11 years. Before that, I was farming at Vermont Compost. So I've been farming for about 20 years. Last year, I lost my crop due to all the rain. So I'm kind of taking a break from big production this year. I also work for the White River Natural Resources Conservation District, and I'm the co-chair for the Ag and Ecosystem Subcommittee.
Awesome. Thank you, JL. Let's see. I'll just kind of pick people. How about that? Senya, is that how you pronounce your name? Or you're the next person I see here? Great.
Hi, yeah, I'm Senya. I am a sophomore at Champlain Valley Union High School. I live on my own small family farm, so that's kind of what started my interest in agriculture. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're really pleased for you to be here. It's great that the youth members can participate. I know it's not always easy for your schedule, so we'll definitely try to make sure we can make these meetings accessible for you going forward. All right, Jake.
Hi, everyone. Jake Claro. I'm the Farm to Plate Director at the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund. And I was a member of the committee in the first iteration of the planning process, and good to be here again. So thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks, Jake. And Alyssa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alyssa White. I live in Huntington. I currently work for the American Farmland Trust, but previously was at the University of Vermont for about 7 years, and I'm a returning member.
Great. Thank you, Alyssa. How about Stephen?
Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today, taking on this great work. I'm a new member. My name is Stephen Leslie, along with my wife, Carrie Gawalt. I operate Cedar Mountain Farm and Cobb Hill Cheese. We're a small, diversified dairy and vegetable farm. Also, over the last few years, moving into agroforestry as well. We've been farming in the Upper Valley for since 1996. Our farm is located at Cobb Hill Co-housing in Heartland, Vermont. And I'm affiliated with NOPA Vermont, Rural Vermont, and the Vermont Healthy Soils Coalition.
Excellent. Well, thanks for being here, Stephen. Let's see. How about Andrew?
Yes, good morning. Andrew Milliken. I recently retired from a little over 30 years working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service with a broad range of responsibilities there, a lot of them pretty relevant to climate change, landscape conservation, habitat restoration, water quality, and very interested in trying to find those intersections between conservation and climate change, and currently volunteering for the Vieques National Wildlife Refuge. So I'm currently on the island of Vieques off of Puerto Rico on sea turtle conservation and some other things, but I'll be back in Vermont soon.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us from paradise down there. Judy, any luck with your microphone? All right. I'm really sorry about that. We'll definitely move to Zoom for our next meeting. One thing, Judy, it's hard to navigate, but if you go up to the top of the screen, there's 3 dots that say more, and you click on audio settings, and sometimes you can play around with some of those buttons to get it to work, but apologies for it not working for you right now. Judy is a returning member and a great addition to this group, especially when her microphone works. So apologies again for that. Let's go to Jason.
Good morning. I'm Jason Nazarowski. I'm an independent ecologist, and for the last 5 years, I've been working with the Gund Institute at UVM, mainly doing pollination ecology, but doing a lot of research in blueberry pollination specifically. And right now I'm transitioning to sort of a different role. I'm working with North Branch Nature Center in Montpelier to start their own conservation nursery. And I'm getting into native plant propagation as sort of the next step to help sort of close the gap with the native plant shortage. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Jason. I would love to hear I'd love to hear from Earl Hatley, but it sounds like Earl, you may also be having issues with Teams. So sincere apologies for that. We will absolutely go to Zoom for our next meeting, so this doesn't happen for folks going forward. I really apologize, but hopefully today it won't be too much of an inconvenience. Let's see. So I think with Judy and Earl, that includes the members that are present of the subcommittee. We also have some state staff, folks from state agencies.
Did you forget about me, Billy?
Oh, Ryan, I did. I am
Oh, my
sorry.
goodness.
Ryan Patch, introduce yourself, please.
Sorry, Ryan Patch, Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. Was on the Ag and Ecosystem Subcommittee last year. I'm Secretary Designee to the Climate Council. I work on land use and climate change issues for the agency, and I look forward to collaborating with everyone here as we move towards rewriting the Climate Action Plan for agriculture and ecosystem. Thanks.
Great, and sorry for that, Ryan. A lot going on. All right, and then as I said, we've got some folks from the Agency of Agriculture and the Department of Environmental Conservation who have been gracious enough to help support the work of this committee with their expertise over the years and appear to be back again for some more. So why don't Marley, you introduce yourself, then Judson.
Good morning, folks. I'm Marley Roop. I'm the Ag Water Quality Section Chief with the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation, and very much enjoyed being on the committee. Good to see you all again.
Great. Thank you. And Judson.
Hello, my name is Judson Peck. I'm a data analyst at the Agency of Agriculture.
Great. Thanks, Judson. And I think the last person that we have in the meeting today is Cheryl Joy Lipton, who has a background in ecology and has been a frequent observer of our work. And invite Cheryl to introduce yourself when we come to the public comment period and share any thoughts that you might have. So thanks for being here. Great. Well, thank you all for agreeing to participate in the subcommittee. It's important work helping advise the Climate Council on decisions around climate action, especially in the space of agriculture and ecosystems. I've long said Vermont's greatest climate asset is our natural and working lands, and coming up with strategies to help maintain their ability to store and sequester carbon, as well as provide resilience and adaptation, and all the other values that we benefit from is a real priority for me and my work, and hopefully something we can all move forward collectively. Before we dive into kind of going over the materials and the kind of formal part of our meeting, I don't know if Jael, you want to kind of share any other framing thoughts as the Climate Council member, kind of co-lead of the group.
Not at this time. I think
Okay,
we'll definitely have more thoughts going forward.
great. And anyone feel free to kind of chime in with any questions or comments. Judy and Earl, again, my sincere apologies. Feel free to put stuff in the chat and I can read it out to the full group, and we'll fix this issue going forward. But otherwise, please feel to chime in. And, so big picture, you know, the Global Warming Solutions Act, which is a state law that establishes requirements for emissions reductions for the state, established the Vermont Climate Council to help advise the state on certain aspects of the law. And it authorized certain subcommittees to the Climate Council to help do a lot of the substantive work, to provide the foundation for the Climate Council's decision making. So this is one of those named subcommittees. We met extensively for a year or so, 18 months, in the build up to the initial climate plan, and developed many recommended actions related to both emissions reductions associated with natural working lands and ways to enhance the resilience and adaptivity of those lands, and to support food viability, food resilience and workforce, and a whole range of adjacent policy priorities that are necessary to really maintain our robust environment. A lot of that work has begun, and implementation has begun to occur of the initial climate plan. And what the council has really charged us with in the run up to this next plan is reviewing the existing actions of the climate plan, assessing where we're making progress, where we're not, addressing what new information or analyses have occurred since the plan was created, advances in science, other things that can inform how we approach these topics, and then really working to identify gaps and, more importantly, prioritize the existing actions in the plan so that the state can be a little bit more focused in moving those forward. I think the original climate action plan had somewhere close to 250 action items, many of which came from our subcommittee. And it's great to have that documented. And I know the council at this point is looking for us to help prioritize those, so that we can move them forward in an expedited way. So that's really our work. We will have a little bit more administrative support from the A&R Climate Action Office. There is a person being hired into that office right now. The hiring process is underway, who will focus on resilient lands. And my understanding is that that person will help us out with scheduling and note taking and things of that nature. So we're flying with a little bit less support than we typically would today, but I anticipate we'll have more of that going forward. So does anyone have any questions? I think like with this first agenda item, just talking about our roles, responsibilities, and goals, I think the fundamental difference from the first plan is that we do have an existing climate action plan. It went through a really robust process and is jam-packed with good action items. So instead of starting from scratch, I think the charge for us now is to really reflect on the progress we've made towards that plan, what, if any, gaps exist, and then further prioritizing the actions therein. So I'll just pause there and see if anyone has any questions or thoughts or has a problem with that charge or any other comments they'd like to share. All right. Great.
Is Judy's hand still up from prior, or does she have another question? Must be prior. Okay.
Judy's mic isn't working, so we're
No, I know, but I wasn't
Okay,
sure if the
yeah.
hand meant something.
Yeah,
so.
sorry. Andrew.
Great. You may have mentioned this, but could you remind us what the timeline is for completing the revision of the plan?
Yes, let me pull that up. So, I believe the plan is due at the end of calendar 25. No, excuse me. Yeah, the end of calendar 25. So, over the kind of spring and summer, our job is to kind of develop an overall work plan for our activities. And this is in the guidance for subcommittees document that was linked to the agenda, just for folks' future reference. But from the spring and summer, we're to develop a work plan for the next 6 or 8 months of our work, and then start to look at effectively conduct a gap analysis, looking at the existing plan, seeing if there's new science or information that's come in that warrants additional actions, or whether there are any key actions that are missing from that plan. And then look at, of the existing actions, where there's been progress and where there hasn't, and then provide a status update of that work to the Climate Council in late summer. Then next fall and early winter, we're going to focus on prioritizing strategies and actions. So those that are currently in the plan and any additional ones we identify through that gap analysis. And then it looks like from January to March of next year, all that information will be compiled by the Climate Council from the various subcommittees into a single update document. And then through the spring and summer, there'll be public engagement and review as that work gets finalized. So that's my understanding of the timeline. And at one of our next meetings, we can have, again, the staff from the Climate Office who are really providing the administrative support for this work to come in and speak in a little bit more detail. But was that a helpful answer, Andrew? Great. Any other questions about the kind of overall arc of our work and what I just talked about? Okay, super. So as I said, a big part of what we're going to do is look at what was accomplished in the past. And Judy and Alyssa and Jake and Ryan, and the staff are all pretty familiar, probably have fond memories of the good work that we did to come up with the initial action plan. And all those actions and recommendations have been compiled into a couple of tools. There's a tracking document, a spreadsheet, and then there's a progress document, which is a little bit more simpler view that takes all of the actions, the the individual action items in the climate action plan, and basically provides an update of in the progress report whether they're advancing, completed, being implemented, whether no action is being taken, or whether there's more information needed to give that update. And then in the other document, which we shared, what's it called, the tracking report, there's a more detail about each action, how it's being implemented, who the lead implementer is, and just a lot more information about what's going on there. And I'm happy to share those documents on my screen right now, but I think really the initial task for this group is to begin to familiarize yourselves with the work that's in the existing plan, look at both that progress report and tracking document, and then begin to think about if there's any gaps from your perspective in the action plan, and how to prioritize that work better. The other piece that we need to spend some time with this summer is being brought up to speed on additional work that's occurred since the last plan was completed. And I know, I might put Ryan, you on the spot. I know there's been at least one study related to agricultural emission and other practices that have been conducted. So I'll maybe pause there for questions, and then maybe Ryan give you the opportunity to speak to some of those studies and analyses that we'll hear more about later this summer. All right, go for it, Ryan.
Seeing any questions pop up. Brief update for those that were here last time or those that have been paying attention. A big part of the discussion was within these mandatory emission reductions that are created in the Global Warming Solutions Act, the tracking and accounting tool, or the greenhouse gas emission inventory that exists for agriculture. Review is conducted to ensure that the process the state is using is congruent with state and federal international standards. Climate Council authorized a study to be done. U.S. Climate Alliance funded that and ran the granting process. We appreciate. ICF was the contractor that was selected. They're the contractor that does the EPA state inventory tool work for EPA. So they're the EPA contractors. So we had a chance to really sit down with those that are responsible for updating the agricultural emissions component and the AFOLU or the LELUCF component. And we received a favorable report. In a sense, what the Ag and Ecosystem Subcommittee put forward last year, that standards have been updated, and both ag emissions and the LELUCF for agriculture have to be looked at in the same vein, was something they agreed with. They provided some technical recommendations for how to improve the inventory, looking at manure management in particular as an opportunity to make sure we're accurately accounting for manure storage emissions, as well as, they called us in closing the Vermont as a leader in this space. So a lot of other folks have been other states have been reaching out to them with questions about really how does agriculture fit into this greenhouse gas accounting framework, because it is a land use that, yes, has non-CO2 emissions from its practices, but there's also sequestration that happens from the same unit of land on which many of those activities take place. And trying to make that biological fact fit into a spreadsheet and all the challenges that come with modeling and inventorying natural processes really kind of all coalesce in that there's a lot of attention on agricultural emissions generally. And so the report, I believe, it's certainly final, and I believe we have a copy. And so I look forward, and Justin, of course, is the one who can really share some of the specifics on the recommendation. And that could be a topic that we could look into, as I think it gives us an opportunity to say, yep, we now have an equation for how we should look at emissions. Now, how should we update the greenhouse gas emission inventory for ag emissions, and what components of the LELUCF need tweaking to make it more representative of Vermont agriculture? Because there are some gaps in there, as we saw in the carbon budget, around how trees are counted as an example. So work's not done, but some good progress And I'm really excited to be able to report a favorable report out that, in some ways we were right. So it's good. Agriculture should hopefully have as the years, as we get closer to, or, work with ANR to integrate those recommendations. It'll be great to, make sure we get Ag and Eco's input on that and make sure we keep you updated on that. So positive report out in my view.
Thanks, Ryan. Go ahead, Marley.
Hey, Ryan, two quick things. One, for those who it might have gone too fast for, LULC, acronym.
Oh, well, yeah, acronym world. Sorry, guys. It affects everything, and state government and climate world especially. GHG, AFOLU, LULUCF. The AFOLU, the Ag, Forestry, and Other Land Use, is the sector the IPCC created that integrates agricultural emissions with its land base. The Ag emissions is the Ag emissions module. The LULUCF is the analysis of land use, and it's called the Land Use Change in Forestry. It's the worst acronym ever made, but we call it the LULUCF, or they do, not, but we adopt it. So Ag emissions, LULUCF, put those together, you get AFOLU, Ag, Forestry, and Other Land Use, and that's kind of the framework for assessing the natural and working land the IPCC hands down for national inventory. Sorry.
Second question, is there a document that we can look at with reference to this contracted work that you're talking about?
Yeah, there'll be a final report. I believe we have it, and we can certainly share it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. So I know this is a lot all at once for folks, but we will have time this summer to kind of slow down and back up and talk about, in general ways, the actions that are in the plan related to our work, and then drill down into more detail around some of this more technical sort of analysis that that Ryan is talking about. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm going to just read your comment, Judy, if that's okay, just so that we have it for the recording, because it's great to get your voice in here. So Judy wrote, my memory of last time is that we worked hard, collaborated with some give and take, had great presentations and input from science folks, and then our work went to another committee that changed everything, cherry-picked items for our work. Will this be in check this time around? Is there a tool for preventing this selective cherry picking? Yeah, that's a good question, Judy. I think ultimately the Climate Council is who decides what gets in the final plan update. I think they do have the ultimate say. We're advising them. I think there were some challenges in coordinating with some of the other subcommittees last year that we can or last time around that we can certainly flag for the council and do our best to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think my hope is that since we're going to be focused more on prioritization and filling gaps, there'll be a lot more time for that cross subcommittee work and collaboration, and it won't be like a last minute effort where there were certain winners and losers that maybe was the reality perception last time. So thank you for flagging that, and we will do what we can to avoid that sort of situation this time around. So in addition to the sort of studies that Ryan flagged, there's also has been or will soon be changes in law that relate to our work. Today is potentially the last day of the legislative session, and there's a number of bills currently under debate at the State House that are related to actions that our subcommittee put forward in the past, related to further protections of things like wetlands and river corridors, and support for agriculture and forestry sectors, as well as land use changes through Act 250 and otherwise. So once the legislature wraps up their work and we have a better sense of what's becoming law, we can certainly spend some time getting a presentation on all those pieces and how they do or don't affect our goals, the goals of the Climate Action Plan and Global Warming Solutions Act. So again, I think a ton of information to come in, and I certainly, this is something that JL and I can talk more about, but we'll want to absolutely make time early in our process to have you all articulate what your priorities are and make sure that the sorts of outcomes that you want to see through this process are realized in the recommendations we ultimately put forward to the council. All right. Any other questions or comments right now? Okay.
Yeah, Billy, if it's all right, I'll just, in also in response to Judy's comments that the opportunity to review other committees' recommendations that may have indirect impacts for some of the land uses and sectors that this group has an interest in. Hopefully things will be moving at a slower pace that if we are able to identify any of those other initiative or recommendations from other committees, it may warrant us taking a look at that to provide feedback on their recommendations as well. So feeling like we put our stuff out and it gets chopped, making sure that this subcommittee feels it can review, and learn about maybe some recommendations from other sectors. I'm hopeful that we could I'm hopeful we have the time, not only in our capacity to do review if we think it's important, but also time in the process to make sure any recommendations that are coming out that we think are significant that we can hopefully review as well. So that's just my view, that I'm hopeful that it can be a two-way street in that regard.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Jake.
Yeah, just a brief reflection on sort of where, like, from the first iteration of this process and in having conversations with folks that were sort of outside this group and some A&R staff too, about like what we can try to do in this next round. And I think one of the things that I've heard is that really trying to find specificity of like what are the resource needs, or dialing in as much as we can on specific policies or programs. And I know, the first time around it was just such a crush of time and trying to get this baseline established. So I think that is the opportunity, as you're saying, Billy, of like we have a basis now to build on, and I think for what we're recommending to advance, legislators, policymakers, agency staff, I think they need more guidance on like what the ask is on a resource basis, and that can help in our prioritization as well of just trying to understand the landscape of what might be possible year over year. And so, yeah, that's just something that like I've had a little more time to reflect on, and just looking at the recommendations with a fresh eye right now is like, yeah, I think we need more depth and detail for some of those items for sure.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Jake. I think, the first plan put forward a massive, really fine compilation of potential actions. It's like a menu almost that the state can pursue in the short, medium, and long term. And I think the opportunity now is for us to really dig into that menu, identify the actions that are the highest priority, and then talk about how we kind of move those forwards with the special attention on resources, both money and staffing, and programmatic capacity, which is always a challenge, especially as we go into what's broadly perceived as some tighter budget years in the off years. Great. Anyone else have any kind of thoughts, comments, questions right now? Okay. Let's see. So again, today was really, to be honest, just an opportunity to kind of get everyone together and get the process kicked off. I think your co-chairs will spend some more time before our next meeting being thoughtful about the agenda and thoughtful about ways to make sure that everyone is more engaged and has an opportunity to kind of participate in a meaningful way. And then really spend some time with all of you thinking about how we want to map out our work going forward. But today was really about just kind of getting things going, setting a high level expectations, and then look into the future. Let's see. So Alyssa said her computer crashed just as Jake was about to start and wondering if someone could fill her in. Jake, you want to give a quick summary of what you said for Alyssa? Basically what we said was that there's a real opportunity now to kind of prioritize the good work that's happened in the past, and that there's going to not be as much of a crush and weight of developing the hundreds of recommendations we did for the first plan. That now that there's a baseline, there's a real hope and opportunity that we can work to prioritize those, especially when it comes to things like capacity and funding, and drill into them to provide some more detail. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, and the one revision I would add to what I did say too is that not necessarily letting the political realities or fiscal situation of our budget be a constraining factor of thinking of what's possible and what is needed in real dollars or staff. Like I think this is our chance to convey what the actual need is, but we need to be specific about that. We need to really, I think about like the dollars and cents, and as you said, Billy, too, like the people that are required to implement some of what we're recommending. And then of course, the political process sort of then shapes that in another way as to what's possible. So yeah, I just encourage all of us to be thinking about in those terms of like, what is the people capacity needed? Let's be really specific about it, or as much as we can, what's the funding, money, resources needed to make those recommendations viable and achievable. So yeah.
Great. Okay, well, I open anyone's. Go ahead, please. Yeah, I say just come off mute.
It was my understanding that Jane or someone was going to send out the CAP recommendations for just the ag and ecosystem rather than all of them. Do you remember hearing that? I don't know, Ryan, maybe. I think it would just make it easier for everyone here to review all those recommendations if it was just all the ag and ecosystem recommendations together rather than in the whole document.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can do that in the action tracking spreadsheet, which is one of the two documents that is linked to the agenda today. Actually, both. Yeah, there's a tab at the bottom of that spreadsheet for ag and eco. So that is where the majority of our subcommittee's recommendations from the first plan came. There's a couple in the cross-cutting tab as well, but that is a good, at least first cut at isolating the recommendations from this subcommittee. Is that helpful?
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's
and
also important to note.
Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I was just going to say, in the initial climate action plan, right, the ag and ecosystem recommendations made it into at least 3 distinct sections of the plan. So if you want to read the context around the recommendations, you just are going to have to jump around a bit in the document. But I don't think it's unreasonable to ask to have those isolated. But yeah, I think, Billy, what you said, the kind of tracking sheet is certainly separated out by ag and eco. So that's a helpful place to start, I think, as well.
Great. Yeah, and certainly, welcome you all to share how we can provide information better or in ways that are easier for you to digest going forward. And yeah, and we'll certainly have lots of opportunities for you to bring your own thoughts or recommendations to the process. But I do just want to kind of reiterate and kind of in conclusion before we kind of move on today that I think there is a fundamental, the Climate Council has signaled a fundamental shift for the subcommittees for this next plan. And instead of looking very broadly and trying to capture as much as we can, they're really asking us to kind of focus on priorities, identify gaps, and then drill into the level of detail and specificity Jake suggested to make sure that the highest priority actions are truly actionable and there's a plan to move them forward. So I think that's broadly the work that is ahead of us. We'll learn a lot more from experts and others over the course of our work, and then learn more about how our work will be shared with the public and get their participation and engagement as well. I guess before we move on, I wanted to ask for folks. Marley flagged for me that she wasn't able to open all the documents that were shared in the agenda, and I don't know if that was a problem for others. Yes.
Yeah, I had that problem as well.
Okay, we'll get them either as links at work or just as actual attachments out to that whole. We'll get them all out to you later today or early next week. So apologies for that. All right, so unless there's other business that folks would like to cover, in my mind, our two remaining tasks are to provide an opportunity for public comment and to talk about scheduling our next meeting. So anything other than that we need to finish today? Okay, great. So let's talk about scheduling. It's always fun, especially for a group this big. There's a couple different ways to approach this. One is that we can kind of send doodles or those sorts of polls out each time we meet and try to find a time each month to meet. Another alternative is for us to just pick a standing meeting each month that we think generally works for the group, understanding that at certain meetings, any one of us may have conflicts, but that generally, Thursday morning at 10 is going to work for people going forward. So I don't know if folks have a preference. I generally like to just have a recurring meeting on my calendar that I know I can plan for. So does anyone have a preference on how we kind of proceed? My expectation is, at least for the next couple months, we'll probably meet once a month. And there might be a little bit of additional kind of homework that you each have to prepare for those meetings, but I think that's a reasonable pace. And then we can always adapt going forward to meet more or less depending on the needs. Any thoughts on that? Okay. Silence is beautiful, means okay. So assuming we're going to meet once a month, is there a day or time? Great, thanks, Stephen. A day or time that is off limits for anyone or a preference for anyone? Um, you know, I'm also happy to just float a suggestion. Let's see. Earl said 10 on Fridays work good for him. How does that work for other people?
Fridays are not the best days for me, but
Okay.
if it works for everyone else, I guess I'll.
Earl, is Friday, is that really your kind of best option, or are there other days of the week that you've got some availability? Okay. How about would Thursdays at 10 or Thursdays at 9 work for people? Okay, great. A lot of nodding and thumbs up. So, and let's see, this is about the middle of the month. So if we look at mid-June, which is amazing that we're at mid-June, would the 20th Thursday the 20th at 9 o'clock work for folks as a first, as our next meeting, and then we'll just get them as reoccurring going forward?
You planning on an hour, Billy?
I think we should probably book for a little bit longer. I don't know that, maybe 90 minutes. I don't know that we'll use it all, but I think it probably wouldn't hurt to hold 90 minutes. Okay. To get going and then take it from there. Okay, so Alyssa and Jake cannot make the 20th. The week after, the 29th. How about the morning, or excuse me, the 27th? How about the morning of June 27th? Okay, that one seems to be a winner. No strong opposition, it appears. Okay, well, let's plan on, yeah, maybe 9. Yeah, let's call it 9 to 11 or 9 to 10:30. Does that sound okay, Judy? Okay. Great. Well, we will get an invitation out to folks for that date. And then we'll try to have those meetings reoccur on, the third Thursday morning of the month going forward. And then, at each meeting, if the upcoming meeting's looking not great for a large portion of the group, we can always adjust going forward. And, certainly appreciate that coming into summer, people may have travel plans and other things that are going to keep them busy, but, we'll do our best to get together and not meet if we don't have work that we need to do, and just kind of stay in communication about what's going to work for us collectively. Great. And we will absolutely meet on Zoom next time so that we can make sure that Earl and Judy and anyone else don't have the sorts of technical issues that they're having today, which I'm really apologetic for. Okay, great. Well, that was the main task we had today. Before we hear from any members of the public, anything else that folks have questions about or comments or kind of want to share with the group? Okay, super. Well, we got about 8 or 9 minutes left. Is there anyone who's not a subcommittee member that would like to share any thoughts, comments, suggestions, questions with the group?
Well, I don't know where the raising hand thing is, but I just thought I would introduce myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl, Joy.
Okay. Yep, have been present at the the Climate Council meetings and the Agonies Eco meetings from the start, as well as the Biomass Task Group. I'm an ecologist down in Chester, and a landscape designer. I use native plants, mostly only, and try to help people restore habitat. And I'm a member of the Forest Roundtable. I pay attention to a lot of legislation that has to do with, you know, ecosystems and habitat restoration, endangered species, etc. And I started a community garden with some others down here in Chester that just is in its second year, so that's cool. I look forward to hoping that I can contribute to this group.
Great. Well, thanks, Cheryl, for all that and for being here. And I do see that Josie Watson has, joined kind of mid-meeting. And Josie, you are a member of the group. And I just thought, we did do some introductions at first, but if you want to just take a second to introduce yourself, that would be great. If not, we can catch up with you next time. You are muted right now, just as an FYI. Okay, well, we'll catch up with Josie next time. They may be having similar technical difficulties, so apologies for that. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Sorry if this is just a little dry and a lot of information all at once, but we needed to start someplace, and it's good to get to meet everyone and hear a little bit about your all's backgrounds and experiences and talk about the charge ahead of us. I will make sure that the information that was shared in the agenda goes back out in a easier to access format. Jael and I will be thoughtful and talk about our next agenda for late June and get that information out to you all well in advance. And then, as we go forward with meetings in the future, we can talk about building our agendas for each upcoming meeting to make sure you all have input into the topics that we plan to cover when we get together in the future. Great. Well, with that, any other thoughts, comments, parting messages? All right. Well, have a great day. Have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Days to you with children. And go out there and enjoy the sunshine. It's beautiful where I am right now. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Everyone.